so next, just continuing on from our last exercise, where we learned the motion editor, we learned to create a motion tween. So if you haven't completed that exercise, you need to go back to it and complete it. In this exercise, we're going to look at the motion editor. So after we create a motion tween, we have access to really fine-tuning that tween and even adding more complex aspects to the tween. So we can remember a tween is an animation of properties. So whether it be X and Y properties, changing the position of something, the rotation of something, the visibility, the size, we can now edit each one of those individually within this motion editor. So let's take a look at how to do that. So you'll need the required file and open up Motion Path. And we've got this rocket ship here already built for us. So in this exercise, we're going to look at changing the path of a motion, creating animation inside symbols. So a nested movie clip symbol, so a nested animation within a symbol. That's something new for us today. And also changing the easing of an animation. So we'll look at what easing is. All right, so if I were to take a look at my animation here, I've got our rocket ship here moving along, kind of slowly moving down. We've already got this very simple motion tween created. All right, so let's turn on the selection tool and click on the path to select the path. And click and drag it to move it. If yours is doing that kind of weird thing, it might be because your playhead is at the end, like mine. But there you go. So move your playhead to frame 1 if you don't want that little glitch to happen. All right. So this is how we move a motion path. You don't do it by grabbing the object and doing this. That will change the way our path looks. So if you're happy with your path and you just need it to move, you select the path and it will take the object with it as you move it. Okay? So just get used to that. Now, as we saw in our previous example, we can adjust this path with the free transform tool. Turn on the free transform tool and rotate it. And see how that changes things. So I'm going to have it like this, so the rocket ship's starting in the bottom left corner and going up to the upper right. So we kind of looked at this, we started to look at this next step in the previous exercise, how we can adjust this path. So remember, a motion path is very close to a drawn object. We can adjust its shape just like we would adjust the shape of a drawn object. So that means the tools we would use on drawing objects we can use on this path. So for that, we're going to take a look at a couple new tools. And they are located under the pen tool. Now, when I look to my toolbar here, I do not see the pen tool. And you too may not see the pen tool, but maybe you do. I'm not too sure. But for me, when I started this exercise originally, my pen tool's missing. Where the heck is it? Well, here's something really handy to know. Now look to the bottom of your tool panel. There are these 3 dots, and they are Edit Toolbar. Very handy to know. And here are some tools that are hidden. Okay, so this is really good to know. Here's a really handy tool that is not visible for me, this magic wand. So you can click and drag these tools to be added to our toolbar. So see this group of tools right here? 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all related. The pen tool, the add anchor point tool, the delete anchor point tool, and the convert anchor point tool. We're going to want to use all 4 of these. So what we can do is create a tool stack here in our toolbar. And I'm just going to place them right above the fluid brush tool. So I'm going to click and drag, and you can see you don't want to add them to the brush tool. Here, let me zoom in on this a bit. You want it in its own area, like this. Okay, there's the pen tool, and now you click and drag the next one and have it be stacked. So you'll see that a blue rectangle is formed around the tool that you're going to create a stack with. And we're going to do that to all 4 of these. Okay, so now when I click and hold this tool, I see the pen tool, add anchor, delete anchor, and convert anchor tool. Now you can close that edit toolbar. All right, so I outlined that a little bit in the instructions. I hope it's clear, but the video should show you how to do it. All right, so we want to use the convert anchor tool. So click and hold and choose the convert anchor point tool. With this tool, we can adjust our path, and we can click on a starting point or an end point. Let me just zoom in a pinch here. So you click on a starting point or an end point, click on it once to select it, then click and drag, and look what we get. We get a Bezier handle. Now I'm going to do the same for this end point. So that creates those Bezier handles for us. Now we also saw that you can do that with the sub-selection tool as well. But this convert anchor point tool is good to know that it exists. It really does. It just does one job. It does one thing for you, while the sub-selection tool does many things for you. Okay, so now that you've got that going, you can grab these handles and create maybe a bit more of a curve. And if you need to adjust the positioning of these points, then you can choose your sub-selection tool, select a point, and change where it's located. Okay, so once you've got your rocket ship, you've got some sort of curve going, you definitely want to take a bit of time swapping between the sub-selection tool and that convert anchor point tool. Let's select the path. I'm going to switch back to my selection tool, select the path, and choose orient to path. And again, we're going to want to rotate our rocket ship so it's pointing in the right direction using our free transform tool. Turn on your free transform tool, select the rocket ship, and rotate it so it's facing the right direction. Okay, that's looking good. Now let's just review how to swap this object. What if I want this, I don't want this to be a rocket ship anymore. I want it to be an alien. So click on the swap symbol button here in your properties. So select the object first. So select the object, hit the swap symbol button, and we're going to choose alien and hit OK. Okay, so now with our alien, we're going to just take a little sidestep here and take a look at how we can create what's called a nested movie clip symbol. So this alien here, we have it broken up into different parts. So we've got the alien and it has arms, and we want to animate these arms, but we don't want to do it on our main timeline here. We want to actually do it within itself, so it can just be looping over and over again whenever we use this alien in our animation. It keeps the animation separate from our main timeline. So as we move forward, you'll see how that is important to us. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, there's a couple ways of doing that. We can edit the symbol in place, or we can edit it through the library. So let's start with the library method. So open up your library and double click on alien. And here is our alien on the stage. And you'll see, let's just take a look in our upper left corner, that we are in the alien symbol right now. This back arrow will take us back to the main timeline. Very important. So up in this upper left corner, it's kind of like breadcrumbs or directory icons showing us that we're within something. We are within the alien symbol right now. And take a look at its timeline. We have each of these parts separate. We have feet, a head separate, a body separate, and then two arms. We want to animate these two arms separately. They are going to be waving. Okay, so let's make sure we have our selection tool. That's the black selection tool turned on. And let's make sure our movie is set to 24 frames per second. So go to Modify Document. And our frame rate here is 24 frames per second. Perfect. Hit OK. And we want to convert. Let's start with the alien's right arm here. So select the right arm, right click on the right arm, and choose Create Motion Tween. And look what happens. So our alien disappears. Do not panic. Look to the timeline here. Why did everything else disappear other than that right arm? Well, our right arm is now extended to 24 frames. So by default, when you create a motion tween, and you haven't extended the frames yet, it will give you a 24, well, it actually give you a frame span that matches your frames per second of your movie. So our animation is 24 frames per second. So it's going to give us a 1 second motion tween by default. Okay, so that can get you going. So don't panic that all the other parts disappeared. What we can do is extend each of those parts now to 24 frames. So select frame 24 of each of the other layers and hit F5. Or you can right click on frame 24 of each of those layers and choose Insert Frame, whatever is easiest for you. And there is our character. Our alien is back. All right, so let's look to our right arm. We're going to create a very simple motion tween. of the arm waving. So we've got our starting point, which is the current position. And we'll move the playhead to frame 24. Select the arm, turn on your free transform tool, and rotate it up a little bit like that. So you'll see now, if I zoom in on my timeline, I now have a keyframe here where I just placed that property change. Okay, so that's something to note, and maybe I wasn't clear in the previous video enough that whatever change you make on a Motion Tween will be shown within a keyframe, depending on where your playhead is sitting. Okay, so you got to really plan this out. So I'm going to hit undo and just show all that again. So I've got my starting point for this arm wave right here. The arm looks good to me. And I'm going to move my playhead to the end of what my animation is going to be, select the arm, turn on my free transform tool, and just rotate it up a bit. So now he's going to be waving, or she. All right, let's do the same thing to this left arm. Right click on the left arm, choose Create Motion Tween. Now move the playhead to the end, turn on your free transform tool, and rotate it up. This is a nested movie clip. So now when I go back to my main timeline, and we do that by clicking this arrow up here in the upper left, we're back in scene 1. Where'd our stage go? Don't panic. In the upper right corner here, just choose Fit to Window, and it will appear again. Let's see how this is looking. Now, if I hit Enter, I don't see those arms waving. So nested movie clip symbols, the animation within them will not be visible when we just hit Enter on within Animate. We have to hit Control Enter to view the final, what the final version of this animation is going to be. So there he is waving his arms. It's not the smoothest arm waving, but for now we're happy. I'll teach you down the road how to smooth that out and make it look a little more less jittery, less jumpy. So again, we can only see that nested movie clip animation when we fully publish and test with Control Enter. All right. Okay, so let's take a look at the motion editor. All right, so just a reminder, the motion editor is where we can fine-tune our animation. To reveal the motion editor, you double-click your Motion Tween here in the timeline. Just anywhere. Double-click it, and it will open up this graph. And this graph represents all the motion that's happening on our in our Motion Tween. Now, it may be a little compressed in and hard to see. So let's just take a look at how to make it a little larger. And when you're working in the motion editor, you definitely want to make this larger by clicking anywhere at the top of our timeline panel. When you get the double-ended arrow, you can extend this up so you can see it a little bit better. A couple things too. You want to make sure we're seeing all of our graph. So you can click on the 100% here in the bottom right corner. Now on the left here, these are all the properties that are currently being animated or tweened within our motion path. So we've got location, X and Y. And we've got transformation happening, which is rotation. So that's our orient to path happening. So here we see each tween or each motion tween broken down. So this is where we can really fine-tune something within the motion editor. This button down here let me just zoom out, is called Fit to View. You might want to click that so this width will fit to the view of your screen size. So for me, because my screen is a bit larger, it can expand out and I can see more. But for you, you might be on a smaller screen. You may want to click on this button to see everything. Okay, so what can we do within this editor? We'll take a look at a couple things. We can change some property values. So let's move our playhead back to 0 or a frame 1 and select the alien on the stage. I'm going to turn on my selection tool. So by the way, you may have things deselected. Maybe your graph might disappear. To know that we are animating this alien, click on the alien on the stage just so we know we're editing it in the motion editor. In the properties panel, after you select the alien on the stage, go to your properties panel and let's choose color effect. Style will be alpha. And let's set the alpha to 25%. And actually, sorry, we want that 100%. I jumped ahead a little bit. Okay, we want our alien to be 100%. Then move the playhead to the end of the timeline. And select the alien on the stage and change the alpha to 25%. So we have our alien kind of fading out as it's moving along. Now take a look at your motion editor now. First of all, we have a new property here being animated. You may have to scroll down a little bit under color effect and alpha. And here we have a line representing on the graph this tween. So it starts at 100. You see the top here is 100%, and then it gradually decreases to 25% here at the bottom. Now we can edit this right here. So you can actually click and drag. It is hard to... There we go. You can click and drag this point. Okay, so you need to be able to float over this this keyframe, and you see that your icon changes. That's when you know you can grab it and drag it down. And even there you go, finally. Okay, drag it down to 0. As you can see, even I was struggling with that a little bit. It's definitely a kind of buggy, the UI. But make sure your icon changes to that, what I just demonstrated, and you can drag it down to 0. So now our alien is 0%. Okay, so we can also insert keyframes within this editor, and this is kind of this is maybe one of the more important aspects of this, where you can adjust the keyframes and their values within the editor. So I'm going to move my playhead to frame 20. And if you double click the line, you can add a keyframe. I'll demonstrate that again. If it's disappearing for you, I think what I'm going to do is move the playhead away, then double click underneath frame 20. There we go. And that inserts a keyframe right there. So you can click and drag this keyframe. There we go. You can click and drag this keyframe down and adjust its curve. Look, we have some Bezier curves here. So you can change how this fading is going to look. It fades out quick, and then it kind of fades back in a little bit, and then fades out. The flexibility is very handy. Now let's just say we didn't want this fading to happen. It's no longer working for us. You know, why do we want the alien fading in and out? Well, we can delete this from our motion editor. So select the color effect, then hit the trash can down here. And we're back to where we started. Let's also look at easing. So easing is how we can bring in a realistic looking tween. What do I mean by that? Well, it's hard to demonstrate through this video, but in class I would demonstrate it as waving my arm. When I'm waving my arm, due to the laws of physics, the motion of me waving, my hand starts off slow, then it speeds up, then it slows down to a stop. Then it starts, speeds up to a peak speed, then starts slowing down to a stop. That gives us a more realistic motion rather than a constant speed. So it starts at a constant speed and ends on that same constant speed. So we want it to look realistic, and we're going to use what's called easing. And you'll see here in the motion editor this add ease button. So let's add easing to our Y value here. So highlight the Y value on the left. Sorry, the X value. Highlight the X value and click the Add Ease button. And here we get some choices. What are all these choices? I really recommend you going through all of them to see what they look like. Now, I'm going to choose simple, and you can twirl down the simple. And I'm going to choose fastest. And look how it changes our animation. So it starts very fast and then ends slow within the X value. Now you may want to take a look at different ones like bouncing. Look what happens there. It creates this bouncing effect only on the X value. That might be a little extreme. Spring. It's kind of fun. So look at those, and as we move forward in this course, I'll show you how to add easing to an object to just make it look a little more realistic when it's being animated. Okay, so that's it for this exercise, just taking a look at the motion editor. If you want to close this, you just double click the tween again along your timeline, and there it is closed. So how does that look? Doesn't that look fun? Woo, look at him go. Okay, so again, if you're having problems, just drop me a line and we'll through email, and we'll sort it out.